Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. PsychicTarot.ca, book your tarot reading and unlock your spiritual journey. And the Pepper Master, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids and cubs, and welcome to season 6. Habits, they die hard. Season 6 and episode 905 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. Oh, Canada. Always 100% Canadian. And of course, always beaverific. Today, recording day, is Monday, May 11th, 2026. And it is a gorgeous day here at the Beaver Lodge. Beautiful blue sky. There's some light cloud there too as well, but gorgeous sunny day here. I am your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And not with me, as usual, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. A big thank goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Pepper Master, the Miss V Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and PsychicTarot.ca. Kids and cubs, how is your mental health today? Whew. I'm doing well. I'm how would you put it? I am coping better than expected with lack of order and planning, which is very unnatural for me. But it's been very, very busy. Of course, our friend is still here. For those who are wondering, his mother is doing much better. I don't know how long she will still be in the ICU, but there is improvement. For example, tubes and stuff like that are gone, and she's now sitting upright for a little bit on her own. So, like I said, things are improving, which is good. But we still have a guest, and we might have our guest for the full week yet. So schedules will be a little upside down still yet for a little while. And we're also as it is the season, we're doing work on the house. So we've started painting certain rooms on the inside that we've been waiting to paint for a good while now, that we're finished a lot of the work. I think it was on Thursday, we had someone from the furnace. We had somebody painting. We had our friend here. And then it's been a social weekend. Took my good girlfriend out, Erin, out for her birthday. And we went to go see a play. Our local theater company here was doing a comedy of errors, which was very good. Congratulations to all who were in the show. You did a spectacular performance, and we really enjoyed it. And the following day, it was Mother's Day, of course. And as you know, my beloved Beaver Mama passed away 20 years ago this year. And so it was the same for my Beaver sweetie. His Beaver Mama passed away quite a while ago as well. And of course, our friend is here because his mother is in the hospital. So it had a very weird Mother's Day vibe. But oddly enough, um, my godmother, who I told you about, who have recently connected with after not seeing her since my baptismal. I don't remember her, obviously, from then. They were in Toronto to see a Blue Jays game and sent them a little message and said, hey, if on the way back home you have a moment, could stop in and have a little chat and coffee and something. And yes, they did. So on Mother's Day, even though, you know, um, my Beaver sweetie and mine's mama are no longer with us here, we still kind of had a Mother's Day ish kind of moment, which is kind of nice. And I haven't had one of those in 2 decades. Um, did my soul some good, I have to say. Did my soul some good. Of course, happy Mama's Day, Mother's Day to all of the mamas of the best damn fam in all of podcasting. I hope that on the day you were worshipped and adored as you deserve to be. And hopefully you continue to be worshipped and adored as you deserve to be the other 364 days of the year. But happy belatedly, because Mother's Day was on the weekend, of course, Mother's Day to all of you. And hope that like I said, that everything was wonderful and that many happy memories were made. Ah, well, but yeah, other than that, my introverted self usually, my typically introverted self, is a touch on overload because there's been a lot of people. There's just been a lot of people around. But I'm handling it. I'm handling it. I'm doing well. Uh, and of course, schedules are just a bit topsy turvy, and trying to fit things in when you can. So that also is a tricky spot too. Less time to do research, less time. So sometimes I feel that I'm maybe not as prepared as I would like to be, and all that kind of stuff. But hey, right? It's not every time and every day that a friend really needs you. And when friends call, you say yes, right? It's there's a time to be a good friend, and in this case, this was it. So we are adjusting and adapting, which again is a challenge for me because I like regularity and predictability and order and stability, and I love plans and lists and things of the like. Those of you who are like me probably can empathize with what it's like when you have things organized a certain way, and then a hurricane just sort of comes in to your life for a little bit. And now you're desperately trying to cling to order as much as you can. But yeah, uh, all things uh, all things considered, I have to say I am doing very well, and I got some good sleep on the weekend, which is also very helpful. Um, but yeah, uh, of course, lots of emotions as well with what is going on. So it's been these are not regular or normal times here at the Beaver Lodge. That is definitely for sure. Um, let's see. Kid Sassy, I make lists, plans, and things never works, but helps me think it does. Well, I mean, even if, you know, technically you're not using them once they're done, the very fact of having them done organizes things in your head. And then sometimes from that point on, some people don't need the list. They just sort of like need to make one in order to make sure that their thoughts are organized. And then they don't look at the list again. They have their plan and they go with it. And then some of us keep the list because we like the little satisfaction we get when we tick something off. Accomplishment. Yay. um, oh my God. Chris. Hey there. How are you, my friend? Uh, I hope I saw, I believe it is you who wrote a wonderful editorial that the Breakdown, our friends at the Breakdown Alberta published. So if that is indeed you, and I think it is, congratulations. And with your permission, please, sir, I would definitely like to share it with the fam. But it's so nice to see you with us. Ah, what a joy. What a joy. Thank you. Oh, that's a nice gift. Kits and Cubs. If you are not uh, following Kit Chris on all his socials, you're missing out. Missing out. Uh, definitely. Uh, Great guy. But hey, uh, the, that's the damn fam. Lots of great people here. My cup runneth over with goodness. Um, Couple of things before we get into it. Uh, little, not little things, but so some stories that don't necessarily need tons of development, but wanted to fit some stuff in because don't want to ignore them. Of course, you've been hearing about the hantavirus outbreak. There was a cruise ship in which this virus surfaced, and unfortunately, 3 people had passed away as a result. They were looking for a place for that cruise ship to be able to come to port so that they could take care of everybody else. And it seems that the leaders of Spain allowed for that ship to arrive at the Canary Islands. So that's where passengers were able to disembark and go into isolation. At that time, there were 4 Canadians still on board. Um, it seems that there were 3 people that were not on that cruise ship that were back home in Canada, and they are in isolation in Ontario and Quebec. Health officials say that all 3 are currently asymptomatic, but are being monitored daily as a precaution. Um, Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand assured the Canadians who would be getting off at the Canary Islands that counselor support would be in place. With regard to this outbreak, a lot of people are wondering, hey, is this a new COVID? This had better not be a new COVID. Not enough time has passed since the last one. According to the World Health Organization, they are offering reassurance, quote, they're saying this is not the start of a COVID pandemic. This is not the same situation we were in 6 years ago. Montreal Jewish General Hospital microbiologist is on the record as saying usually these viruses, because they are rather fatal, have a capacity of transmission that is not very good, and that is the nature of these types of viruses. So might be a little harder to contract than COVID was, uh, perhaps. But then again, when we had COVID, it was a novel virus, hantavirus. For people going, well, that's what they said about COVID too. But COVID was a novel virus, and we were at first guessing how it would behave best on our best knowledge of viruses and viruses of similar type, because we had SARS back in the day. But this hantavirus is a virus that we are more familiar with. I'm just going to take a look here to see when it was first discovered. So yeah, it was discovered and identified in 1978 by Dr. Hoang Lee near the Hantan River in South Korea, following research into illnesses during the 1950s Korean War. While clinical cases were recognized as early as 1951, the virus itself was not isolated until 1978, with the genus formally established in 1981. So we are a little more familiar with how it is that it is transmitted than was the case with COVID. That's another big difference between the two eras. Um, with regard to hantavirus as well, let's see, there was some more developments. I'm just going to see if I can find them. And of course, my notes have disappeared because it's just been that kind of day. So from memory, from what I can remember, from what I was noting down, um, the Canadian government did send some chartered flights, sent a chartered flight, I should say, down to the Canary Islands to bring those 4 people back. On that flight, there were public health officials that were monitoring them every step of the way. Those Canadians had been in isolation since about May 4th already. So they're coming back. They landed in Victoria last night around 6 p.m. local time after making a quick stop in the province of Quebec at some point to change planes. They are in isolation in British Columbia. They are not coming in contact with anybody in the general public, according to BC Public Health Officer Bonnie Henry. And they will stay in isolation for at least 21 days total, after which could be extended up to 42 days if at some point in those first 21 days they start showing symptoms. The thing with hantavirus is that it is possible to not show symptoms of the virus for 42 days, which is about 6 weeks. So, according to, again, the medical health officer, Bonnie Henry, we won't know for sure if we're past the worst of it. Um, until the 42 days. But it seems that it's a 21 days isolation mandatory. And if there are no symptoms, then I guess your isolation restrictions maybe loosen up with some cautions. That part, I'm not too sure what happens. But if there are symptoms that start appearing in the first 21 days, then isolation can continue for up to another 21 days. So if you thought that I think it was the 10 days of COVID was long, imagine hantavirus. You don't want to get this one. It would appear as well that there are three others, two in the United States and a French national, who are in isolation as well. One of, I believe, the Americans is asymptomatic. I think the other one has started showing symptoms, and the French national, we are told, has health that is in decline at the moment. So that's about where things stand at the moment. As far as we know, in Canada, um, any cases that we know of appear to be isolating at the moment. And as mentioned previously, um, I believe that all cases in Canada at the moment, or all suspected cases or possible cases of transmission, people that are being monitored or in isolation, are asymptomatic at the moment. So that's what we have with that. We'll be getting more details as things come along, I'm sure. I'm just going to take a look to see if there's anything else here. So the World Health Organization are confirming 7 hantavirus cases linked to the cruise ship outbreak total. The captain of the MV Hondius thanked the guest and crew for their quiet strength as the final passengers were prepared to leave the ship. It appears that most of, if not all, of the passengers have disembarked and have been repatriated by their home countries, it would seem. So yes, the French passenger that we mentioned here is undergoing treatment at a Paris hospital after her condition worsened overnight, according to the French Health Minister, Stéphanie Erist. U.S. officials say one American passenger was flown to Nebraska and they tested positive, but without symptoms, while another showed mild symptoms and was taken to Atlanta for monitoring. So yes, so my correction on myself there. One seems to be asymptomatic without any symptoms, but tested positive. And then, as I mentioned here, 4 Canadians landed in Victoria on Sunday after leaving the Canary Islands and have not shown symptoms. They are isolating in British Columbia for at least 21 days, and 3 people have died since the outbreak began. WHO officials continue to reassure the public, saying risk of wider spread remains low. And that is basically the most the important information that you need at this time. Of course, for those of you who are wondering a little bit about the financial side of this, of course, it seems that Moderna Incorporated, their shares continued to extend recent gains as investors welcomed reports that the company is researching a hantavirus vaccine and advancing early stage work in the area. Shares of Moderna have added more than 16% in the last 5 days, trading hands at about $55. Moderna has attracted investor attention due to its ongoing early-stage work on a hantavirus vaccine as part of its broader infectious disease research pipeline. Despite the recent momentum, the commercial opportunity associated with hantavirus is generally viewed as limited given its relatively low incidence. Hantavirus has recently made headlines after 3 passengers on a cruise ship in the Atlantic died earlier this month, which is and for those who don't know, hantavirus is a rodent-borne disease. And says here that the virus is not spread between people the same way as respiratory illnesses such as COVID-19, with infections typically linked to exposure to infected rodents specifically. So there you go, kids and cubs. A little bit of information so that you are armed and will be less susceptible to either conspiracy theories or other things of the like that may want you to be a little more frightened than you need to be. Of course, we need to be concerned, but we don't need to panic at the moment. Also, kids and cubs, wanted to talk to you. There's a little couple of things with Doug Ford and everything that's been going on here. We showed you a clip last week of Ontario interim leader John Fraser asking the Treasury Board president, Caroline Mulroney, if she could tell us anything, something, any detail, anything at all about the plane. Who owns the plane, even? Did we ever really sell it back? Are there receipts? Right? And it seems that the next day, she got up in the House, in the legislature. So it seems that, I guess, after a day of, I guess, having meetings or whatnot, they developed whatever media lines would be for her, at least in the legislature. And this is what we came up with.
We have been very clear. They want to lecture out accountability. They want the receipts. Well, let's check the receipts, Madam Speaker. We have received 8 consecutive clean audit opinions year after year.
Yes. Yes. There's clean audit reports. I don't know if we just do like collectively start sending conservative leaning politicians boxes of Q-tips to their offices, because they don't seem, they speak English, but they don't seem to understand English that they hear or read. Because I thought that it was pretty clear that the receipts we were looking for were the receipts for the alleged sale back of the plane. The receipts for the purchase of the plane would be good too, so that we could compare them and see if those amounts actually do even out, and if we could have any receipts also that may have been incurred, for legal fees or whatnot, or anything used to process the transaction. And I don't know if we got those back. If not, it would sure be nice if the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party refunded that money to taxpayers, or maybe even just Doug Ford personally, since the plane appears to have been for him, even though after the fact he claimed it could be for other people to go to other things or for evacuations and stuff, even though the plane can only land on 10% of the landing strips in the province. That's what happens when you make after the fact justifications, is that people game that out and test it in the real world, and that's when they realize, yeah, that was clearly an after effect justification. You weren't thinking about that before. Because if you had thought about that before, you would have realized that the plane only being able to land on 10% of airstrips in the province was probably not a feature you'd be wanting to promote or drawing attention to. Just saying. So, she stood up and she said, "Let's look at the receipts," and then she didn't present them. In fact, she's talking about a whole other set of receipts, which is very curious behavior from the alleged most transparent government. So totally transparent. Dr. Adil Shamji who is the MPP for Don Valley East, stated, "Will the president of the Treasury Board please just answer a question?" Carolyn Mulroney refused to respond even once after being asked repeatedly why she approved the purchase of Ford Nation's private luxury jet. She approved it. Why did she sign off? And when will she turn over the receipts? And I'm like, we're not even at the point of when will she turn over the receipts. We're still at the point of has the plane actually been sold back, like for realsies? Or is Doug Ford just saying, "Hey, I sold back the plane," and is just like leaving it somewhere, and then like 2 years from now, we're going to see him riding in it at some point. Oh, what plane? That plane? Or so first of all, we don't even know if the plane has been sold back for a fact yet. We just have Doug Ford and pals saying that it was, and we don't even know if there are receipts. The questions that the opposition needs to be asking need to go back in time even further than why did she sign off and when will she turn over the receipts? This is not good. It is not good at all. And Doug Ford apparently gave another press conference, which is, and it wasn't, well, the press conference for media scrum or availability, that kind of thing. And he didn't particularly shine. And then it seems that Doug Ford decided that we needed a video of him. So he recorded a 4-minute and 54-second video. Kids and clubs. Whoops. Kids and Cubs, I believe that would be. And you know what? I don't really see the value in playing it all for you. But here is Doug Ford, sitting. Well, now you're seeing them walking with the finance minister there, going to support the budget or announce the budget. But you see him here. He's sitting in that chair there, and he's looking at you, and he's keeping it straight with you, and coming to tell you all the things that he has done.
Thinking about.
Oh, sorry. We won't turn on that volume. We won't let him do the propaganda there. But you see, he's walking with families where homes are being built, and he's sitting in that chair, and he's looking at you, and he's got that look of, I'm being earnest and honest and straight with you, talking to you, the people, and giving you some accountability on all that I've done over the last little bit. Except that that's not what we're asking for at the moment. Maybe we understand that you need to do that. That's part of your job to report back to us to what you're doing, assuming that the things you are saying is true here. But when you say people across Ontario are feeling the impact of global uncertainty and President Trump's tariffs on their household budgets, that's why we're doing everything we can to cut taxes, lower fees, and make life more affordable for Ontario families. When we know that that is not what you're doing, objectively, we know that that's not what you're doing. And if you're doing it only about 55 or so odd days a year, at least as a legislator. And if you truly are doing everything you can, judging by your results over the past 8 years and the very, very, very little that's been done, and may we suggest, sir, that you might suffer from a very severe lack of creativity and imagination. If what you have done so far is literally everything you can to cut taxes, lower fees, and make life more affordable for Ontarians. Because from where a lot of Ontarians sit, we just basically see you sticking a siphon into the treasury and just blowing the money out to all your buds. And basically selling everything that's not nailed down. And we're not getting much benefit for it other than some new highways, roads, tunnels, and other buildings that are big legacy projects that you can point to. A bit Trump style, building stuff. But when it comes to anything having to do with the caring economy, teachers, doctors, nurses, personal support workers, therapists, people to have families that have children with high needs, post-secondary education, child welfare. You're nowhere to be found. You're just nowhere to be found. And being nowhere to be found on all of those subjects is the complete opposite. It makes the tax cut essentially worthless because all the other costs go up. The things for which you lower fees, if people can even afford them, don't do much good. And if you're not trying to make life affordable for all Ontarians, particularly starting with those that were near the bottom or at the bottom of the social ladder, particularly with regards to income, then you might be doing it wrong. So I'm looking at this video, and given the context of the FOI and the plane and the cuts to OSAP and who knows what are the attempts to take over school boards, the attempts to take over city councils, all the things that he's doing, all the things, right? You see this video, and all I hear is Doug Ford saying, "Help me, I'm drowning." It literally, that video just looks like a "help me, I'm drowning" PR exercise. Whenever Doug Ford sits down in front of the camera and looks at you and talks about all the things he's doing to help the people, for the people. We got to build those homes. You know he's in trouble. And you know he knows he's in trouble. Problem for Doug Ford is this one is not going away. It's too sticky, and as I keep on mentioning, it is too simple. Everyone can understand. Everyone can understand. And he's not helping himself in the sense that while all of this is going on and he's claiming about this transparency, right? He's not letting us know stuff. We've had news about the Metrolinx deal. And when we are wondering about it, well, again, we keep on being told we can't share that with us. Our money, the contract was taken in our name, but apparently they can't tell us anything about how things were resolved. According to the wonderful people at the wonderful Trillium, Charlie Pinkerton, Jack Howen, and Jessica Smith Cross, we found out on May 7th that Metrolinx has settled a $500 million expropriation dispute with a development group that includes a close friend of Premier Doug Ford's. The Ford government won't say how much the case was settled for. Why the fuck not? Again, what's the motive for not telling us, and who benefits from the silence? In 2024, Kraft Kingsman Rail East Corporation took Metrolinx to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or the OLT, seeking compensation for the expropriation of what are known as air rights above rail lines in downtown Toronto. The company claimed Metrolinx owed it about $500 million. Metrolinx and the company reached a settlement, and the OLT case was closed late last year. The amount Metrolinx agreed to pay Kraft Kingsman is not public. Quote, there has been a settlement in the matter. Metrolinx cannot provide further details on confidential settlements. Read a statement from the transit agency's media relations team. That's interesting. Article goes on to say, a spokesman for the Premier's office did not respond to the Trillium's request for comment. It's an unusual case for a few reasons. The amount Kraft Kingsman claimed alone exceptional, and air rates aren't often separated from the land beneath them in Canada. Also, Kraft Kingsman didn't own the air rights. What? Yeah, it would appear that Kraft Kingsman sold air rights that it did not own. Wow. And I believe, and the article starts with a development group that includes a close friend of Premier Doug Ford's. Now, for those who know what air rights in Canada are property interests in the space above land or existing structures, allowing developers to build in dense urban areas like Toronto and Vancouver by utilizing the air above railways, highways, or low-rise buildings. These rights can be bought, sold, or subdivided as air parcels through stratified reference plans to maximize land value. So, for example, you can use air rights to construct towers over existing operational infrastructure, such as in Vancouver's post office, redevelopment, or proposals for Toronto's rail deck park. So yeah. So it seems that this company sold air right that it didn't even own. So you can see why somebody would want to sue for that. It signed an agreement to buy the rights from two rail companies for $78.7 million, but hadn't closed the deal by paying for them when they were expropriated. Kraft Kingsman Real East Corp. was incorporated in September 2018 through a partnership between Kraft Development and Kingsman Group. Its directors include representatives from each development company, including Kraft senior executive Carmine Negro. Or Negro, I'm not sure. N-I-G-R-O. I'm not sure how the name is pronounced. Negro is personally close to Ford. He sat at the Premier's table at the wedding reception of one of his daughters in 2022. Ford's cabinet has also appointed Negro chair of the Ontario Place Corporation, an inaugural board member of Invest Ontario, and chair of the LCB. Oh, wow. That's a lot of positions for one person. Negro is in frequent contact with Ford, according to emails he sent obtained using the Freedom of Information System, and several well-placed sources who know the pair to be close. Quote, air rights, they're going to mention it here, refers to the ownership of the space above a property. By owning a property's air rights, a person or company controls the development rights to the space beginning at a certain height above the land below. The air rights at the heart of the Kraft's Kingsman case against Metrolinx are for about 35.5 acres of space above two sections of train tracks that connect to Union Station, including one a few blocks west and another a few blocks east. So that's in some pretty prime real estate in Toronto. Metrolinx needed the rights to ensure safe railway operations for projects associated with its plan to expand and electrify the GO train network, among other purposes, according to its lawyer filings in the OLT. Kraft Kingsman justified its $500 million by arguing it could have built high-rise mixed-use developments in the space above the tracks. Metrolinx pushed back hard. The characteristics of the expropriated air rights properties would make it extremely difficult, if not impossible, for towers to be built there, wrote Metrolinx lawyers. One reason for this, Metrolinx lawyers wrote, is that the expropriated air rights do not begin until 27 feet above the rail lines, and the rails themselves are elevated in many places. They argued that this would require development in some places to begin 45 feet above its neighboring properties, which Kraft Kingsman doesn't own, and so wouldn't be able to use to support decking structure to build on. For these reasons and others, they argued there's no opportunity or pathway for constructing residential towers in the said air rights that would generate a profit for the developer. Some of the air rights Metrolinx expropriated are next to what's known as the rail deck, a stretch of air rights above tracks that the City of Toronto has long considered for development. Kraft Kingsman used to be part of the group owning the air rights for the rail deck, but no longer is. Kraft Kingsman reached an agreement to buy the 35.5 acres of air rights at issue in its case with Metrolinx from the Canadian National Railway Company, or CN, and the Toronto Terminals Railway Company Limited in 2018. Kraft Kingsman deferred paying and closing the deal twice and had not completed the purchase by the time Metrolinx expropriated the air rights in 2021 and 2022. Metrolink's lawyers argued that the company held off on completing the purchase, quote, most likely because it did not represent a good deal and they were not worth the $78.7 million purchase price on the date of the expropriations. Metrolinx previously agreed to pay the railways the same amount for the expropriated air rights that Kraft Kingsman agreed to buy them for, $78.7 million. The Ontario Land Tribunal is a quasi-judicial body that handles the land use disputes, often between developers and municipalities or stakeholders. While its mandate is to be arm's length, the Ford government controls who is appointed to it. Ford's cabinet appointed a friend of the Premier, Mary Hubbard, to run the province's land use tribunal in 2019. She stayed on as it transitioned to the OLT. Ford himself visited Hubbard on multiple occasions, well-placed sources have told the Trillium. When Hubbard died in 2022, she was replaced by Michael Kraljevich, a longtime ally of Ford and his late brother, former Toronto Mayor Rob Ford. Ford's cabinet appointed Kraljevich to the board of Metrolinx in 2019, on which he served until his resignation in 2023. The current chair of Metrolinx is Nick Simone, whom Ford has also called a friend. Simone is president of the Pace Law Firm, a recipient of the province's Skills Development Fund. Also, source of controversy. Also, source of police investigations, so far not into the Doug Ford government, but into recipients, I believe. Asked last summer about Negro's case against Metrolinx, Ford said, quote, "We have a lot of people that are going to be suing Ontario, suing Canada, so on and so forth. I don't get involved in that. I'll let the courts deal with that." Oh, yes, you don't get involved with the courts. He who passed legislation to defy a court order. I don't get involved in that. There are going to be a lot of people suing Ontario. Yeah, why? Why is that? Maybe you'd like to look into that. Maybe you would like to arrange your affairs so that there are not a lot of people that are going to be suing Ontario. So yeah, apparently we're not allowed to know. Very convenient, of course. So yeah, things not going very well for Doug Ford here. And even in the public opinion polling, it is starting to show, according to 338 Canada. If we're looking at the projections for Ontario, there is a decline, very marked decline here, starting for the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party, one that would be statistically significant. So let's just put this up for you here, kids and cubs, and let's see what we've. Let's just take a look at how things are going in Doug Ford's world, what his political fortunes are like. Now, according to this, kids and cubs, you will see right here, this is August 31st, 2025. This is the peak. Progressive Conservatives were at 48. Ontario Liberals were at 29. The NDP were at 16. And the Greens were at 5. And from this point on, it keeps going. It goes down. So we get to 47 by October 21st. We get to 46 by November 23rd. We get to 45 by December 20th. This is not a big, drop at the moment. It's just a nice, slow and steady decline, staying at 45 throughout January, going to 44 February 18th. And of course, everything moves. And then we get to the good part. We're at March 20th, still at 44%. And now, whoops, April 20th, 32%. And whoops, 9 days later, 38%. So progressive conservatives have lost 6% since March 20th. Whereas the Ontario Liberals, all of a sudden, correspondingly, and these moves seem to be going together, it was 44 for the Conservatives and 29 for the Liberals in February 18th. March 20th, it was 44 to 30, so the gap is starting to close. Then we get to April 20th, 42 to 31. Now we're now looking at an 11-point gap. And then, boom, 9 days later, 38, 35. We are looking at a 3-point gap only. Looking at seat projections, well, lo and behold, what do we have here? Do you see this? Doug Ford is no longer in a majority territory. If an election were held today, Doug Ford would not be winning a majority. Now, again, if we go back in time, October 21st, when they were at their peak, the Conservatives would have picked up 90 seats, and you need 63 for a majority. Now, even though the polling numbers were somewhat consistent, there was a little bit of drop in the seats. It was showing a drop to 83 seats in November 2023, and that stayed relatively stable, 81, 81, 80, up until February 18th, 2026, and then 80 on March 20th, down to 69 on April 20th, and then 9 days later, 57 outside of majority territory. So if you're wondering why it is that Doug Ford all of a sudden is putting back on, hello folks, I'm Doug Ford and I'm here to lower your taxes and build the homes and make you my number one priority. Well, that's why. And if that's what the public numbers are, and I've been saying this for a week, imagine what his internal numbers must be saying, because Doug Ford has been that doing that deer in the headlights thing for a couple of weeks now. So that means they've been seeing this coming. Doug Ford has torched his brand. Doug Ford has torched his brand, and it's not coming back. And all additional secrecy is not helping him. So, will there eventually, at some point, if the liberals, especially if it's generic liberals, cross the conservatives, wouldn't it be interesting if Doug Ford starts suffering a fate similar to that of Pierre Poilievre? Sure would be terrible, wouldn't it? If yet another conservative leader who has had plenty of time in the public eye, right? Pierre Poilievre has been 22 years. If you count his time at City Hall, how many years has Doug Ford been in politics? To see that you're no good, and that we're not getting any value for money, and in fact that you may be potentially even robbing us blind, as the premier of pork might be doing, because listen, for all that money he's been spending, it doesn't seem that a lot of it's been being spent on us. We don't seem to be this government's priority. Just saying. So yeah, not the best polling results for Mr. Ford here. And this is a situation that is probably going to keep on getting worse for him as time progresses. I believe there had been some other news as well with regard to Doug Ford coming up or surrounding him that had him in a slightly sticky-ish situation. And perhaps that will come across here at some point during the show. But it just seems that every bit of news now coming from him is not helping him in any way, shape, or form. It's just not. And when you start to get that role going, it's sometimes very, very difficult to stop that. All right. Let's see if there was any other subject that I needed to do a quick update on here. Oh, yes, indeed. It would seem that we had the nomination as well for the who would be the candidate provincially in the riding of Scarborough Southwest in Ontario, and that is the electoral district for which Nathaniel Erskine Smith was throwing his hat in the ring. And there's been some stuff going on, in that there were a whole bunch of signatures or something like that that I believe had been denied, um, which was causing a bit of a scandal. We had mentioned this a little bit on our show. People were wondering why it is that a lot of things, names were being removed in terms of who could vote in this nomination race. The Prime Minister had issued a video where he was chatting a little bit with Mr. Smith in the, I guess maybe not the moments, but a day or two, or just the Friday before nation was going to take place. And I'm trying to play it for you, but for some it is freezing. So I will try to find it from another source. It'll probably be on the Prime Minister's feed, which gave the impression that Mr. Erskine Smith might have had some momentum going, and that this note or word with the Prime Minister or from the Prime Minister about what was going on was something that would kind of seal the deal. A lot of people were seeing it as an endorsement, and for some reason it is really not coming up. So hopefully I will be able to find a version that will be able to air, but it would seem maybe this is the one here. Yes, this one will work. Sorry about that, kits and cubs. Really thought that the first one would work. I had it all lined up, but when I was pressing play, just nothing was happening. So, and I see here, it appears that I've gone fuzzy again. All right, so let's fix that. I have no idea why Restream does this. Makes me go fuzzy every now and then. So here we go. This is the video of the Prime Minister chatting with Nathaniel Erskine Smith, probably the day before the vote was to take place. And let's see what the Prime Minister had to say.
You can have the ideas, you can have the hard work, but also to be really on the ground with your constituents, knowing what's going on, what their needs are, and working together. And, it hurts in some respects you're going, but I understand it because you're going to be more on the ground. Working at the provincial level, working for the folks, I hope, in Scarborough, on healthcare and education, making lives better, helping to grow that economy, and we'll be right there alongside. You can have.
So, well, things didn't go as planned, and it would appear that Nathaniel Erskine Smith didn't secure the nominations, and there is some suggestion on the part of people associated with his team that there may have been some things going on that should not have been happening. Don't know if that is the case with any certainty, because it would be too early for such an investigation to take place and reveal that is the case specifically. However, it seems that he may be considering a challenge. According to Sean Preville of Global News, former Cabinet Minister and Liberal MP Nate Erskine Smith is suggesting he may challenge the results of a nomination contest for provincial riding after he came up short in the vote. The Ontario Liberals voted on Saturday to nominate Ashanul Hafiz as their candidate for the yet-to-be-announced by-election in the Scarborough Southwest. Hafiz, a local businessman in the riding and vice chair of the federal Liberal Party, won by just 19 votes, a number Erskine-Smith confirmed to reporters after the results. In his own comments after the vote, Erskine-Smith signaled he might challenge the results, though he wanted to speak with his team. He told reporters that scrutineers during the vote told him that they'd, quote, never seen anything like it. Asked what he meant, Erskine-Smith said he was told by some scrutineers that half the people at one table had ID issues. Quote, I would like to hear from every single person who was in that room on our team to understand what took place and what their feeling is, and if there is a legitimate reason to challenge, Erskine-Smith said. Hafiz says he doesn't want to focus too much on Erskine-Smith's allegations, noting that the hallways were filled with people wearing his badges. Quote, so that is the clear evidence of who is the real winner, he said, adding he thought the process was fair and that the Ontario Liberal Party did an excellent job. Many eyes were on the nomination contest after Erskine-Smith announced he'd run. He currently represents Beaches, East York, next door to Scarborough Southwest, and ran provincial party's leadership in 2023, losing to Bonnie Crombie. With the former federal cabinet minister planning to jump into the leadership race for the Ontario Liberals, winning a seat in the legislature would give him more visibility and allow him to challenge Premier Doug Ford head-on. As of Sunday, the leadership race only has two official contestants, current MPP and former hospital president Lee Fairclough and former political staffer and strategist Dylan Mirando. Others, including former federal cabinet minister Navdeep Bains, MPP Rob Suryanik, and housing advocate Eric Lombardi, are exploring potential bids. Scarborough Southwest is the only provincial riding currently up for grabs. Erskine-Smith released a video on social media Friday showing him with Prime Minister Mark Carney, who said, quote, it hurts. The Liberal MP would be leaving federal politics, but he's faced concerns from other candidates of trying to use their community as a springboard towards the leadership. Kadira Jackson, who ran for the Liberals in Scarborough Southwest in last year's provincial election, says she and another candidate have agreed to place each other second on their ranked ballots to help ensure the winning candidate is local. So there seemed to have been an anybody but Nate campaign going on before. Of course, Kadira Jackson, who ran for the Liberals in Scarborough Southwest, was particularly offended that Nathaniel Erskine-Smith would come and run in this riding because it seems to be there was an unwritten rule that if the candidate that was approved the previous time wanted to run again, they had first dibs on the riding. So for him to sort of slide in with his name recognition definitely caused some consternation with having her saying, quote, I don't want my riding to be used as a tool, Jackson said. Scarborough Southwest became an empty seat earlier this year when the Ontario NDP Deputy Leader Dolly Begum stepped down to run for the federal Liberals in one of the two by-elections in the province. Her departure was seen as a shocking move given that she had held such a high role in the provincial party. Ford has not announced the timing of the provincial by-election, but it must be called by the summer. Of course, you see Doug Ford being completely different than Mark Carney. Mark Carney, who didn't play games with by-elections, but Doug Ford clearly waiting till the last possible minute, because it's better for him for that seat to be vacant than be filled with someone who is not a Ontario Progressive Conservative. So he's waiting as long as he can. So yeah, Erskine-Smith lost by 19 votes. Checking out the Globe and Mail here and seeing if there's any additional details for us with regard to that, and then hopefully I will find the clip of what Mr. Erskine-Smith said after the vote specifically. It says here, this is by Laura Stone of the Globe and Mail. Nate Erskine-Smith lost his bid for the Ontario Liberal nomination in the East Toronto riding of Scarborough Southwest, the contest that was seen as critical to his plan to run for leader of the provincial party. Saturday's result means the status of his potential leadership run is now unclear. That's true. Asanul Hafiz, owner of 30 Domino Pizza Store and vice chair of the federal Liberal Party in Ontario, beat Mr. Erskine-Smith and two other candidates to win the nomination. The results were close. Mr. Erskine-Smith confirmed to reporters that he lost by 19 votes. Mr. Erskine-Smith, in a rainy scrum with reporters after the vote, said he would speak with his team about the results. He says, I have to do a full debrief with them before I decide next steps, before I decide if I really consider the outcome fair, he said. Speaking to reporters after the results, Mr. Hafiz said he believed the process was fair and that the party ran the nomination race properly. Quote, I cannot speak for Nate. I'm very excited. I want to share this moment with my community. We just won and I'm the candidate right now, and that's it. The contest drew a significant amount of attention because of the wide-ranging implications for the Ontario Liberal leadership race. The nomination contest was seen as a must-win for Mr. Erskine Smith, currently a federal Liberal MP, before he launched his bid for the provincial party's leadership, because now that he hasn't won, it's very easy for people to say, well, gee, you couldn't even win a nomination to run in Scarborough Southwest. How are you going to be the damn premier? That's the risk when you do this, right? If it doesn't work out for you, the narrative gets set for you rather than you setting your own narrative. Leading up to the vote, Mr. Erskine Smith was tight-lipped about his future plans if he were to lose. In his final pitch to voters, Mr. Erskine Smith billed himself as the best person to stop Premier Doug Ford and bring, quote, smart, fair, and honest leadership back to Ontario. The stakes were raised Friday evening when Mr. Erskine Smith released a video alongside Prime Minister Mark Carney. Standing next to each other, Mr. Carney said it hurts that Mr. Erskine Smith was leaving for provincial politics, but that he'll be working for the people of Scarborough on making lives better. A line of voters snaked through a local Scarborough high school on Saturday as members of the party cast their ballots, ranking their choices for preferred candidate. Supporters for the candidate stood outside holding signs and sharing flyers, which in some cases suggested who to mark as second and third choices. Of course, the conservative online influencers and people tried to make a big scandal out of that, asking, why are election ballots written in a language that are not English and French, blah, 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 and not noticing that the ballot said that this is a sample, and not noticing clearly that two of the spots on the ballot were marked. Again, we're not talking about the sharpest sandwiches in the picnic basket. It was because two people in the race made a deal to support each other. You put me first and put the other guy second, and my delegates will put me first and you guys second, in an effort to stop Nate. That's what happened. And those pieces of paper that were circulating were offered to people as a sample, as instructions to show them if they wanted to participate in that anyone but Nate plan, that this was how to vote. It wasn't a ballot. It was very clearly not a ballot. There was not even anyway. But yeah. Hopefully I can find that too, Kits and Cubs, to show you how it was so obviously not a ballot. Maybe it will pop up really easily here as well. But yes, people were trying to make a big scandal there, trying to suggest again that we might be doing some things here. There we go. Got it right here. So I will show it to you, Kits and Cubs. And again, when I see this, and some people think that this was a ballot. Now, again, whether they think they actually really thought it was a ballot, whether or not they're just claiming that they believe that it's a ballot in order to drive engagement, we don't know. But does this look like a ballot to you? It literally says sample ballot. And two of the spots are filled out. There's no marking from the party on it. There are some people out there that wanted Canadians, to believe that this was an actual ballot used in a nomination race. I'm not. You wonder how some people make it through a day in one piece. You just wonder. And yes, as Kitland says, there's nothing illegal about doing this. Regular shenanigans or strategic voting or whatever it is, you're allowed to organize to tell your delegates, hey, if not me, vote this person second. And you're allowed to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, nothing wrong with it. There's nothing illegal with that. Let's put it that way. But yeah, a line of voters, as I was mentioning, so they were in line. right at the Scarborough High School. And it said here, supporters for the candidates stood outside holding signs and sharing flyers, which in some cases suggested who to mark as second and third choices. As voting ended, supporters broke into chants of Hafiz, and some shouted Nate in the crowded halls of the high school. The Scarborough Southwest seat was vacated, as we mentioned, when Dolly Begum left to run in the federal by-election. Interim Ontario Liberal leader John Fraser said Saturday that no matter who wins the nomination, the party has to come together to win the by-election. Quote, "We've had tough times and we've had conflict like any other party, but we stick together. That's how I know we'll be successful," he said. The Liberal nomination race focused primarily on Mr. Erskine Smith's ties to the area and whether he was using the race solely as a launching pad for his leadership. Mr. Erskine Smith does not represent Scarborough Southwest federally. He represents Beaches, East New York, but geographically, they're literally one next door to each other, pretty much. So this whole thing, we need someone who's local. Okay, he's literally as local as you can get, but without living in the riding. Right? It's not like he was somebody that was transplanted from British Columbia to come and run, right? He was also questioned about why he remained as a federal MP while campaigning provincially. Again, not something I'm particularly fond of, but he isn't campaigning provincially yet. He was campaigning to win a riding nomination, and had he won it, he probably would have resigned. It's not exactly the same thing as Jason Kenney, for example, who has spent God knows how long uniting the right and then establishing the UCP and then running for the leadership of it before he resigned from his federal seat. Right? I personally like the idea of finishing one thing before you start another, like Olivia Chow did. She resigned her seat in the House of Commons before she entered the race for mayor of Toronto, which she lost the first time. Right? I personally like that. I like it cleaner. But again, this is not the first time we see this. And it says that the race was rife with accusations of wrongdoing. The party said about 1,800 memberships were not counted in the final voters list because of invalid entries and duplication. Mr. Erskine Smith argued the party's membership process disenfranchised longtime Liberal voters, predominantly seniors, because it required an email and two-step validation. He also questioned why temporary residents could vote in the contest when others could not. The Ontario Liberal Party repeatedly said it ran a fair and free nomination race. This is not good for the new start. This was supposed to be like the fresh new start there for the party, and this is not happening. Mr. Hafiz, Mr. Erskine Smith's closest rival, had to answer for social media posts from 2013 that showed him posing with guns and calling for the death penalty of a former Bangladeshi politician, which he said were not reflective of his character, but they may have been in 2013 in the moment you did that, though, sir. Again, Ontario Liberal Party, if you are looking to rebrand and start with a fresh start and you're fighting a premier on corruption, you're not helping yourselves here. Mr. Hafiz settled in Scarborough from Bangladesh as an international student more than 20 years ago. After living in London, Ontario, he moved back to the area with his wife and two children and talked of his connection to grassroots members. He said he was focused on affordability and jobs for youth. The other candidates in the race were lawyer Kadira Jackson, who ran for the party in 2025 provincial election, and Mahmouda Nasreen, a community worker who has lived in the riding for 20 years. Ms. Jackson, who was Mr. Erskine Smith's harshest critic in the race, said the community shouldn't be used as a stepping stone to leadership and build herself as an advocate with strong community ties. Ms. Nazarine also spoke about the need to speed up credentials for immigrants who come to Canada. Leading up to the race, Mr. Hafiz and Ms. Jackson had asked their supporters mark them first and second on the ranked ballot in order to block Mr. Erskine Smith's candidacy. The Ontario Liberals will select their new leader on November 21st. Two candidates have formally entered the race: Dylan Mirando, a former political staffer, and Liberal MPP Lee Fairclough, a former hospital president. A second Liberal MPP, Rob Suryanek, is also expected to enter the race. Another big potential name for the race could be former federal cabinet minister Navdeep Bains, and he's said to be strongly considering a bid. Mr. Bains recently departed his high-profile job at Rogers Communications. So yeah, the thing didn't. So there is some stuff apparently. Like I said, all these electors or these people that had been signed up that had been rejected, and then apparently a lot of people showing up on the day who did not have a valid ID. and needed to use another system in order to be deemed eligible to vote. Like, for example, a lease and a bill that might have been sent, a utility bill that might have been sent to them, or something like that. So yeah, they're wondering. I guess it seems to have been an inordinate number of people who needed to be deemed eligible to vote in that manner. So there seems to be some questions coming from the Nathaniel team Smith side about whether or not there could be something, especially given the very, very tight result. Now, this is Nathaniel Erskine Smith in a scrum. A lot of people are slightly misrepresenting everything he's saying here as him saying for sure that there was cheating and that he was contesting. He's not saying that, but he is clearly indicating that he has heard from his team that there might be something. He's not saying it yet because things need to be verified, I guess, and maybe not enough time has passed yet. But he is keeping his options open.
Lots of stories about what's happened inside, but I got a debrief. I like, it wouldn't be fair for me to jump off the cuff. Like, I really have to talk to the team in detail to get advice from the team as to what they saw happen in there. I've spoken to a few scrutineers already who said they've never seen anything like it, and it's unreal what happened in there. So I need to do a full debrief with the team. I wasn't in the room. I was shaking hands, and then
so all they told you was we've never seen anything like it, and didn't tell you.
They said they've never seen anything like it. There were, at one table, it was 50% of the people that had ID issues, saying they'd lost driver's license, they just moved in the area. So look, I don't know. It's unfair for me to specifically speculate. I got no idea. I got to talk to the team, do a full debrief with the team as to what comes next in terms of, it was obviously very close, and we'll see it. I don't know.
How close was it? We heard 20 votes.
Yeah, it was shy of that, just shy. Yeah.
19? 19.
Yeah,
13.
Are you concerned about the final results? Like, you don't think this is necessarily the legitimate result of this nomination?
I would like to hear from every single person that was in that room on our team to understand what took place and what their feeling is, and if there is a legitimate reason to challenge. Obviously, given everything we've seen in the race to date, and for some frustrations along the way with disallowing members, and then we see scrutineers in that room articulate concerns. I honestly have to do a full debrief with them before I decide next steps, before I decide if I really consider the outcome fair. I don't know.
So there you have it. We don't know yet. Kitland M, I don't know what the internal rules are for asking for recount, or even if they have a way to do that. Again, we don't know, right? See, this is the part where we are, when I keep on saying that political parties, right, are private organizations. They make their own rules, whatnot. There's no Elections Ontario to come and monitor that. Right? There's no standard. Right? There's no, just each party decides that they're going to do the things a certain way, and it can change from nomination race to nomination race. So, yeah, not quite sure what to make of it. Of course, you have like conservatives jumping on this. Oh, yeah, you told us not, well, look who's saying that things are rigged now. Wait, not exactly. Right? So we'll see. Could be like there's nothing. Toronto Dan says here, Nate is the right leader, but in the wrong area. That's all this was. Strength in numbers. That's what it could be as well here. Toronto Dan here also says Rob Suryanek would be my choice if I had skin in the game. Kitland M. But problematic party contests seem to work for the Conservatives. Why not for the other parties? Why not indeed? Here again, Toronto Dan again. If this was Beaches East York, Nate would have won, but Scarborough Southwest is one of those areas that controls itself from within, whether you agree with that or not. different neighborhoods, different cultures. You never know. But he didn't win at this point, and it becomes very easy for opponents to start weaving a narrative, right? So he's going to have some things to consider. Of course, they're going to look to see if there's if there are more details. But right now, it looks like Mr. Smith is not the winner in this one, and that we know of, there is not much that we know of anyway. We don't know if they had recourse at the moment. Just going to take a look here because we had Nathaniel Arfin here, who was a guest on our show at one point. So I just wanted to see if there happens to be anything else maybe coming from him here. And I don't see any comments on his feed at the moment with regard to that. Let's see. What is this? Okay. Nope, that has nothing to do with any of this. So, okay. All right. So yeah, no additional information from what I can see here, because I thought that maybe Nathaniel might have had some insights to share, considering his involvement with the race, or not so much with the race, but trying to ensure that there is indeed a future. Successful future for this city. I'm looking at Nathaniel Erskine Smith's feed. There is nothing posted on it since 1 hour before the vote. 57 minutes ago from Laura Stone says Hafiz says he hasn't yet heard from Erskine Smith, says he's looking forward to by-election and it's a big Liberal family, also stands by the nomination process. Quote, our goal is to get Scarborough red again. Oh, God. No, dude, no. Do not do that. Do not evoke that language. Oh boy. Wow. Jeez. You do not want to be saying make something else again anymore. That's not good. Oh my God. So yeah, that's what we have in this particular race at the moment. So we'll see if there's more that comes out there, or if that just ends up being the result, and whether or not Erskine Smith remains in federal politics instead. All right, kids and cubs. The Alberta List Leak. There's a couple of developments that have occurred since then. It would appear news came out that the Alberta Prosperity Project, if I'm not mistaken, has been under investigation by Elections Alberta since January, it would seem, because it hasn't done everything that it needed to do in order to ensure that it was appropriately registered as a third-party intervener in the election, or just in politics in general. I shouldn't say the election here. That was a bit of information that if it was public, if that had been announced, wasn't particularly well known. I had not come across it until yesterday at some point. So I thought that was particularly interesting. Let's see, what else do we have here? Okay, that was Mr. Peter Guthrie who had some comments to mention about that. Let's see if we've got anything else here. Yes, this is the one that I was thinking about mentioning here. So this is from a website that's called Gangsterism Out. And it says that the Alberta Prosperity Project has been under investigation by Alberta's election commissioner since mid-January for failing to register as a third-party advertiser. Elections Alberta asked a judge to adjourn an April hearing without setting a future court date. The APP has defied 2 notices from investigators to produce financial and other records. In response to the second notice, APP lawyer Jeffrey Rath accused the commission of making, quote, baseless accusations and of bias, procedural unfairness, and incompetence. Rath was acting for Mitch Sylvester, also named was Dennis Modry. Dennis Modry is that guy again who, if you've heard, that apparently fleeced his family of $1.3 million, allegedly. Or maybe not allegedly. Maybe I keep on saying, always saying allegedly, because you always have to do that if things have not been proven in court. But this one is not. I was trying to remember. Is not allegedly because there was a court order issued for him to pay back. A judge had already found that he had misappropriated the $1.3 million from his relatives. Once again, only the people. Yes. And it says that the threshold to require registration for third-party advertisers is really low. If advertising exceeds $1,000, the organizer must register as a third-party advertiser. There is no confusion. The claim that the APP has incurred no costs for advertising is insulting because, there's a whole bunch of meetings and town halls and stuff like that they've been having, and all of those had to be advertised, right? The 2 men were asked for copies of invoices or receipts related to town hall meetings hosted by the APP between January 2nd and 31st. This included venue rental costs or the fair market value costs that may have been donated in kind, regardless of the amount, including food and beverages and any cash contributions received. The APP has held dozens of town halls across Alberta. Rath claimed the APP was not a legal entity and therefore couldn't register as a third party under either the Provincial Citizen Initiative Act or the Citizen Initiative Regulation. Quote, Alberta Prosperity Project is a loose affiliation of individuals, not a legal entity having any legal personality in any sense of the word, Rath wrote. The election commissioner pointed out that the Alberta Prosperity Prospect Society was incorporated under the Provincial Societies Act on January 26th with Sylvester as the chair and Rath as director. The APP Society is, quote, the governing body controlling and providing direction to the Alberta Prosperity Project, a branch project of the Society. The Alberta Prosperity Project is a loose affiliation of individuals, not a legal entity having any legal personality. But he says now, I guess hoping for the people who won't check, but they registered as an incorporation. They incorporated on January 26th. So it is a legal entity. And whether it is incorporated or not, according to the Citizen Initiative Act, the loose affiliation of individuals that he's talking about still meets the definition of a group. So yeah. And it would appear that there's already been one departure. Somebody named Tim Hoven of the Centurion Project. Tim Hoven, quote, Tim Hoven stepped down Tuesday as president of the Rocky Mountain House and District Chamber of Commerce in West Central Alberta. Hoven spoke at Centurion Project events of David Parker, imploring separatists to use the illegal voter database as an outreach tool for their cause. It appears Hoven resigned a day before the elections. Alberta poop hit the proverbial fan, and he received his injunction letter, the cease and desist letter. He may resign from many things. It won't slow the charges and lawsuits that are surely coming his way. It says here that he is backpedaling furiously, allegedly. Swears that he holds no leadership or decision-making role with any pro-independence group, and that his involvement has been strictly limited to speeches. The Alberta Prosperity Project is a pro-independence group led by Mitch Sylvester, who's the chair of the CVO, lawyer Jeffrey Rath, who's the director, and Dennis Modry, Dr. Dennis Modry, allegedly, it would appear. They tout, quote, a sovereign Alberta within or without Canada. It is currently under investigation by Elections Alberta for violating third-party advertising limits, refusing to disclose its financials as required by law. It describes itself as a comprehensive educational initiative focused on garnering support for a future where Alberta determines its destiny, ensuring prosperity and freedom for future generations. Of course, the project submitted a separation petition with 277,000 names on it. We did a show on that last week called a petition suspicion, because people are wondering whether all those names are actually legit. And those 277,000 are 100,000 more names than they had obtained 60 days previously. In the last 2 months, the group and or its hangers-on, this is verbiage used by the person who wrote this, obtained 60 days previously. In the last 2 months, the group and or its hangers-on were busted. Sorry, I screwed up that sentence. In the last 2 months, the group and or its hangers-on were busted cold, illegally accessing the data of 2.9 million Alberta voters. Verification of the APP petition is blocked by a court order. There's no clear indication of when these people will be called out, or even if. It has been said that no Albertan can inquire if their name has been improperly included in the separatist petition by the APP without their knowledge. This is not entirely correct. Anybody whose name and personal data has been lifted by separatists may make a written inquiry to Elections Alberta. It is time-consuming, will take a long time to get a response, and very few will make that effort, but this is precisely what the APP is counting on. So if you are an Albertan and you are registered to vote, you might want to write to Elections Canada to ask whether or not your name was somehow searched. Yeah. So that's not going very well. And there's much more opinion that is coming up as a result of the things that have been happening here. One of the things is Danielle Sith is claiming that she now has a security clearance, and I believe she might be claiming now that she's already been briefed. There are some contradictions, though, however, in what is going on. This, according to David Clyman-Haga. It says here, Danielle Sith, who is basically the public face of foreign interference in Canada, has been given a Canadian top secret security clearance, her press secretary said on Thursday. Nobody has confirmed that. According to Sam Blackett, in conversation with the Canadian press, quote, the Premier has now obtained her top secret clearance in order to receive briefings on issues related to national security. Earlier this spring, CP's reporter noted in his story, Ms. Smith demanded the clearance, quote, so she could be aware of any foreign interference attempts in the province. Quote, of the province. Mr. Clyman-Haga says, this hardly seems necessary. All one really needs to do is pay attention to the Twitter and Truth social feeds of U.S. President Donald Trump, his cabinet, and family members, but whatever. Back in March, Canadian security and intelligence expert Wesley Wark described Ms. Smith as both naive and an admission. Quote, the naive part is that foreign interference will happen if any foreign entity, state or non-state, decides to pursue such a campaign in its own self-interest, he wrote. The confession part in Smith's request for security clearance is a clear acknowledgement that the provincial bodies have no capacity to understand the prospects of foreign interference targeting Alberta. On its face, the case for giving Miss Smith such a security clearance, top secret, is a real thing in Canada, by the way, does not seem like a strong one. Whether it's been as an apparatchik for foreign-funded ideological think tanks, an economic student in a university department heavily influenced by foreign ideologues, or as an enabler of the Alberta separatist movement from which some amateur diplomats are actively trying to negotiate the dismemberment of Canada with foreign officials, throughout her career, Alberta's premier has run in circles that want to dominate, break up, or even take over Canada. Is she a separatist herself? She says not. She claims to believe in an oxymoronic and vaguely defined sovereign Alberta within a united Canada. She certainly acts like a committed pedal-to-metal separatist, though one who has taken a deep draft of someone who has taken a deep draft of MAGA Kool-Aid. The foreign influencers Ms. Smith has worked for and with, however, are by and large from the corporate sector of the United States, although certainly some of the people she posed with for selfies when she raced down to Mar-a-Lago last January to be at President Trump's side had connections with some of the U.S. government's alphabet security agencies. Canadian media seem to imagine that influence from non-state actors like foreign corporations, no matter how potentially harmful, is innocent and benign simply by merit of the fact that it does not originate with an official government agency. This is, of course, nonsense. In addition, it appears to be very difficult for Canadians to admit that the country on the other side of the world's longest undefended border may no longer have our interests at heart, let alone might want to destroy our country despite plenty of evidence to the contrary. Notwithstanding Prime Minister Mark Carney's apparent road to Damascus moment on this topic, one suspects it hasn't quite sunk in with the agencies that are charged with protecting Canadian national security. Ms. Smith's security vetting, whatever its nature, went harder at her alleged Ukrainian great-grandfather's loyalties than her own. Yet, as Doc observed, there is, quote, huge potential for foreign interference from the United States in the separatist process in Alberta, not least given U.S. attitudes towards Canada and all the 51st state rhetoric emerging from the White House and right-wing social media platforms. Even without her ideological history, though, Miss Smith is temperamentally a bad risk for security clearance. She is a political opportunist and a blabbermouth. Conservative commentator Andrew Coyne recently compared her to a magpie. There is no way, given secret information she could use to her political advantage. So let me try that again. There is no way, given secret information she could use to her political advantage, that she will be able to resist the temptation. This we can be confident Canadian security agencies understand. It is not completely clear from the internet that deep well of questionable information about such matters who is responsible for giving security clearances to Canadian provincial politicians, who does the scout work, and what the nature of that investigation is. Was Miss Smith interrogated, or did she just fill out a form? I have no idea. Quote, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, Government Security Screening Program, investigates and provides security assessments on persons whose employment with the Government of Canada requires them to have lawful access to classified information or sensitive sites, such as major ports, airports, nuclear facilities, or the parliamentary precinct, the federal government says. But is the same process applied to provincial politicians? This is not clear. According to CP, quote, the Privy Council office, which reports to the Prime Minister Mark Carney, is responsible for issuing security clearances to provincial officials, emphasis added. It is doubtful, however, that the PCO has the expertise or the manpower to actually conduct a security clearance. The federal government website says there are 3 levels of security with respect to information. Let's try that again. The federal government website says there are 3 levels of security with respect to information, the release of which could harm the national interest: confidential, secret, and top secret. In reality, there are almost certainly more and higher levels of security and a significant degree of need to know compartmentalization. Do these levels of security also apply to provincial politicians? Again, this is not clear. Can we take it on trust that the security clearance Ms. Smith has been assigned is actually top secret, as her press secretary believes? There's insufficient evidence. I suspect it is more likely to be secret, as suggested in Dr. Work's March 19th Substack column. Moreover, most likely, the PCO decision was purely a political one, and the secrets to which Ms. Smith will have access in the form of oral reports only will definitely not be off the, quote, top shelf, let alone unspecified levels above top secret. Finally, relying again on Dr. Work's observations, is it even possible for Ms. Smith's separatist-dominated United Conservative Party government to work productively with Canadian security agencies when its stock and trade is to frame every issue as a grievance with Ottawa? Quote, the very best weapon to respond to foreign interference is to be able to tell the public that it is happening, Dr. Work stated. Would the Smith government make itself so beholden to the feds? Would it be willing to tell the people of Alberta about the potentialities and realities of foreign interference in the separatist petition referendum process? The answer to both these questions is obviously no. So will Ottawa set the record straight in the event Miss Smith lies about or spins what she has learned in her top secret briefings? Imponderable. Hmm. And this is the one I was looking forward to bringing to you, supplied to us by Kit Chris here. So I am going to. I did not see the answer from him as to whether or not he said yes, actually, in the chat. But Chris typically is a good egg and rather agreeable, especially when I have such requests. So I am going to assume that he said yes here. And if you didn't, I am very sorry, sir. But this is definitely, in my mind, worth sharing because it fits in with some questions I had today. I don't know if some of you may have not noticed, but because the show was delayed, I had prepared a little video clip and a short editorial about something I noticed over the course of the weekend with regard to this. Who was talking about this and who wasn't? But here, Chris Sturwold says, elector data is not political ammunition. The Alberta voter list breach affects every Albertan regardless of party, ideology, or position on separation. This affects everyone. It does not matter whether you support separation or oppose separation. It does not matter whether you vote UCP, NDP, Conservative, Liberal, Green, another party, or do not vote at all. It does not matter whether you are political every day or avoid politics like it owes you money. Your elector information should not be treated as political ammunition. It is protected democratic infrastructure. Over the last day, I have sent letters and formal concerns to my MLA, my MP, Elections Alberta, the Alberta Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner, the Federal Office of the Privacy Commissioner, the Premier's Office, relevant Alberta ministries, opposition offices, and journalists already following the Alberta list of electors breach. If you want a sample of democracy, something that you do, those are things that you can do if you live in Alberta. Why? Because Albertans deserve answers. Elections Alberta has said this was not a breach of its own systems. It involved the unauthorized use of the Republican Party of Alberta's copy of the list of electors by the Centurion Project Limited. That distinction matters, but it does not make this less serious. If protected elector information can be lawfully handed to an authorized political recipient and then allegedly end up in the hands of a political adjacent organization, searchable or usable by others, then the safeguards are not strong enough. That is the issue. Not whether the data came from a direct hack, not whether Elections Alberta servers were breached, not whether anyone can hide behind a technical distinction long enough for the public to move on. The issue is that elector data appears to have left the lane it was legally supposed to stay in, and once data leaves that lane, there is no magic undo button. It can be copied, downloaded, screenshotted, exported, shared, rebuilt, cross-referenced, retained. A database can be taken offline. That does not mean the data is gone. And that is why Albertans should be angry. Elections Alberta has said security features are added to each list provided to eligible recipients so they can identify who received each specific copy. Elections Alberta also obtained an injunction requiring the Centurion Project Limited and the Republican Party of Alberta to identify people or entities who received or accessed the list of electors or any portion of it. That is important, but it also raises the next questions. Who accessed the list? Who received copies? Who downloaded it, searched it, exported it, screenshotted it, or retained it? Was any of it used for petition activity, separatist organizing, voter contact, campaign work, fundraising, advertising, or political targeting? Have affected Albertans been directly notified? No, they have not. They have not. 2.9 million Albertans, fellow Canadians, private data was leaked, and it does not seem that the government has made any effort so far to advise Albertans whose data has actually been searched, whether or not it has. What protections exist for domestic violence survivors, judges, prosecutors, police officers, journalists, healthcare workers, elected officials, marginalized Albertans, and anyone else whose safety may be compromised if their home address was exposed? What happens if someone refuses to delete or return the data What happens if someone falsely claims they deleted? What penalties actually exist? And will this government fix the law or just wait for the next privacy disaster to walk in wearing a name tag? The Ontario OIPC has opened, that's the Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner, has opened an investigation under the Personal Information Protection Act into allegations that the Centurion Project Limited collected, used, and disclosed personal information derived from Alberta's list of electors. Good. That investigation matters. But Albertans should not have to sit quietly and wait for every process to unfold behind closed doors before asking obvious public questions, because this is not just a privacy issue. It's an election integrity issue. It's a public safety issue. It's a democratic trust issue. Elections Alberta has publicly acknowledged hearing from Albertans who are unhappy, scared, and anxious about this situation, including domestic violence survivors, law enforcement, marginalized communities, and others who face real risks if their information is made public. That should stop every elected official in their tracks. For some people, a home address is not just a line in a spreadsheet, it is a safety boundary. It is the difference between being reachable and being exposed. It's a thing that they have worked hard to protect. And now Albertans are being asked to trust that the situation is under control, even while basic questions remain unanswered. That is not good enough. Albertans should not have to wonder whether their personal information has been copied into unauthorized political databases shared with outside organizations, or used to influence petition or campaign activity. They should not have to wonder whether their information was searchable by people who had no legal right to it. They should not have to wonder whether someone's political project was built, even in part, on data that was never theirs to use. And they should not have to wonder whether the law is strong enough to prevent this from happening again. Because if the answer is, quote, "we are investigating," then fine, investigate. But the public also deserves reform. The public deserves direct notice where possible. The public deserves a clear accounting of who accessed what. The public deserves meaningful penalties for misuse. The public deserves stronger security requirements for anyone who receives elector data. The public deserves audit trails, retention limits, breach notification duties, deletion requirements, and enforceable privacy obligations for political parties, citizen initiative organizers, third-party political actors, vendors, contractors, data platforms, and political adjacent organizations. And the public deserves to know whether recent changes to Alberta's election laws have weakened Elections Alberta's ability to respond quickly and independently when something like this happens. That question matters, because a regulator that cannot act until the evidence threshold is high enough while sensitive data is already moving is a regulator forced to chase the fire after the building is burning. And if the law helped create that delay, then the law needs to be changed immediately. This should not be partisan. It should not matter who benefited. It should not matter which party received the original list. It should not matter whether the political project attached to this was separatist, federalist, conservative, progressive, or something else entirely. The rule should be simple. Elector data is not political ammunition. It is protected democratic infrastructure. Treat it that way. And yes, while we are asking hard questions, Albertans are entitled to ask why legislation that weakens demographic safeguards keeps receiving royal assent with all the friction of a rubber stamp. I hope the Lieutenant Governor got a good price on that stamp, because it is getting a workout. If you are angry about this, do something. Write your MLA, write your MP, write Elections Alberta, write the Alberta OIPC, write the Federal Privacy Commissioner, write the Premier and relevant ministers, write journalists who are already reporting on it. Ask for the same basic things: full accountability, direct notice to affected Albertans, stronger privacy rules for political parties and political adjacent organizations, clear penalties for misuse of elector data, a public accounting of who accessed the data and how it was used, a serious review of whether Alberta's election laws have been weakened at exactly the wrong time. This affects everyone regardless of party, ideology, voting intention, or position on separation. Albertans are required to trust the democratic system with their personal information. The democratic system should be required to prove that trust is deserved. Elector data is not political ammunition. It is protected democratic infrastructure. Act like it. Right? Right? Man. Wow. So yeah, some really great writing there. Great point of view. And what I have noticed here, Kits and Cubs, as I mentioned on the editorial, is Danielle Smith hasn't shown a peep of concern for the actual citizens of Alberta, their well-being, their safety. She's really upset that Naheed Nenshi somehow didn't tell her, but she's not mad that her staffers didn't tell her. Her staffers could not possibly have known, but Mr. Nenshi, once somebody brought it to his attention, he did the right thing, reporting it not only to authorities, but also to Jason Kenney, who was personally doxxed. Danielle Smith wants it to be his fault. He should have told her. No. Not only did nobody in the party apparently do anything, but nobody in the party thought that it might have been a good idea to call Jason Kenney to let him know. Now, of course, there's not much love lost between the current UCP and Jason Kenney, but sending the message that, yeah, you know what, these things happen and people might get hurt, but they're not on our team, so. But as I mentioned on the show, there will probably give plenty good, decent, hardworking Albertans who voted UCP last time who are not down with their personal information being used that way. So when Kit Chris says this affects everybody, it does affect everybody. But Danielle Smith has not mentioned anything, but I haven't also heard anything from Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, noted conservative. Ontario Premier Doug Ford, noted conservative, although he seems to have a lot on his plate right now. Nova Scotia Progressive Conservative Premier Tim Houston. Rob Lance, the Progressive Conservative Premier of Prince Edward Island, and Mr. Tony Wakeham, Progressive Conservative Premier of Newfoundland and Labrador. And you know who else we haven't heard from? Canada's alleged leader of His Majesty's allegedly loyal official opposition, Pierre Poilievre, who I believe is an MP first for a riding in Alberta. He literally has constituents himself that he is supposed to represent who have probably been doxxed. And not a word from him either. Nobody in the entire conservative leadership on the Canadian scene seems to be concerned, worried, empathetic about the well-being, the safety and security of 2.9 million Albertans, fellow Canadians. And when we're talking about personal safety of the people who live with them and their dependents, who rely on them. Nobody seems to be, if you're conservative, particularly if you're a conservative that has been running up to the microphones lately and saying, jail, not bail, let's get tough on crime. All these tough on crime conservatives suddenly not concerned with this one, and particularly not concerned with the victims of these crimes. Aren't the conservatives the parties that like to wrap themselves in the flag of victims' rights? Jail, not bail, tough on crime, and let's support the victims. Where are they now when the alleged crime is by allegedly one of their own? Potential largest data breach in Canadian history, and nobody in conservative leadership from coast to coast to coast has anything to say about it, particularly about the Canadians who have been rendered extremely vulnerable as a result. Come and tell me that there's not a class action lawsuit coming. Come and tell me that there is not a class action lawsuit coming. You know, the best thing that might have happened to Canada as a whole is that list in a certain way, because now, do we really foresee in October 19th that is going to have that question on a referendum ballot? Or do we really foresee a future where this thing is going to be tied up in court so bad that there's absolutely no way that a referendum on this question will be able to be held. And if a referendum on this question cannot be held, Danielle Smith, that might not work out very well for Danielle Smith on her the referendums that she wants on those 9 other questions. And as David Kleiman-Haga says, given that Danielle Smith has a history of framing absolutely everything as a fight and battle against Ottawa. Maybe we're seeing it right now, eh? She's trying to she's trying to back out of her commitments that she signed on to with that MOU. As the oil industry is making money hand over fist right now. Oh, the pathways thing is just too ambitious. It's going to cost too much. The price on carbon is too much for our companies to be able to handle. You got to make the regulations even softer. Yeah. Her word means nothing. And as Jen Gerson said, I am past the point of listening to what Danielle Smith says. Danielle Smith has said over 1,000 times that she is a Federalist. She can say that all in one. She keeps saying that. But if you stop paying attention to what Danielle Smith says, what she claims, because she lies like she breathes, and start looking at what she does, Danielle Smith's a separatist. I mean, come on, man. Danielle Smith is a separatist. She is helping. And if I swear, it's like if she really thinks that she's on the interviews right now, says, so are you going to do this Captain Canada thing? That's what I've been doing since the beginning. Yes, going alone to Mar-a-Lago, right? Not with Team Canada delegation, but with the likes of Kevin O'Leary and Jordan Peterson, putting U.S. booze back on the shelves. Hearing news about the Alberta separatist groups saying that they've got the backing of the United States. You got these tweets from David Parker going, you Canada think that we can't leave. When you're going to realize we have the backing of the United States, basically saying if you try to stop us, I guess we're going to call in a favor and it'll get kinetic. Jeffrey Rath going, no. The first step is independence. Don't make the question. Like this, do you want to secede from Canada and join the United States? That will never work. People will never go for that. We got to do it one step at a time. First independence, and once we do that, then we can get that 51st state. Literally, there's tweets out there of them saying that from their accounts. And Danielle Smith is all doody doody doo. I have no idea this is going on. Come on, it's not credible. Does Danielle Smith even have security clearance? Does she? Right? She had somebody on her step saying, I talked to some RCMP guy and he tells us that there's absolutely no interference. And then that same day we get these reports saying, yeah, there's definitely a lot of Russian U.S. interference. We read the reports to you in the show. Of course, the guy that she says talked to the RCMP to give that information that there was absolutely nothing wrong going on, also doesn't have the security clearance. So if there nobody, it's not like the RCMP would be telling him. Meanwhile, you got Jason Kenney trying to who has a legitimate beef in the fact that his stuff has been used. His identification, his personal data has been leaked, but trying to present himself as the person that is going to be Captain Canada and pro unity. When he's a guy he celebrated Brexit. He doesn't have a problem with this kind of thing, right? Making claims. It's like people need to get in on the Federalist side and make sure that this this doesn't go too far. So Jason Kenney asking everybody else to clean up the mess he started to make. how Donald Trump Jason Kenney posting things such as looking at a painting that has a very famous painting, the school board trustees meeting or something like that. There's a school board trustee talking to, you know, essentially, I guess looks like they're chewing them out a little bit, and stating something, framing it in such a way that. But Jason Kenney seems to be wanting to look like he is a trying to send the message, I'm guessing, to Canadian women that they might be better off with him than with Pierre Poilievre. Says, one of my favorite Canadian paintings, The Meeting of the School Trustees, 1885, by Canadian painter Robert Harris, 1849 to 1919, part of the National Gallery of Canada collection. The tension between the teacher and the trustees in this rural Prince Edward Island schoolroom is palpable. Show you that you'll recognize, you'll probably recognize the painting as soon as you see it here. Let's see if this is the right one. Takes a little time to appear. There we go. Pretty famous painting. Here. It says, she is trying to persuade them while they look intimidated by this confident young woman. Perhaps the trustees themselves aren't entirely literate, so feel a little sheepish telling the teacher how to run the school. Her composure in front of the older male bosses make her a kind of early Canadian feminist icon. This is Jason Kenney we're talking about here? Because I would always thought that in Jason Kenney's interpretation of that image, the trustees would be telling that teacher why it is that their school can't have a gay-straight alliance. Oh, too soon. Sorry. Jeez. Oh, God. But yeah, listen, Jason Kenney has been handed a legitimate cause for this to be his moment. But let's not let's not give Jason Kenney too much of a free pass here. You can claim that it is wrong, and rightfully so, that he was doxxed. And these are people who clearly don't like him. Right? But this is not a man who has been against making people his personal punching bag. So when he's giving interviews to Spencer Van Dyke, for example, of CTV News, and says, quote, personally, I'm tired of being a punching bag for that crowd, and I think there needs to be consequences, Kenney told CTV's Question Period. Jason Kenney, welcome to realization. Hopefully, you having been the punching bag of this crowd will open your eyes to all the crowds your crowd has made a punching bag of. And maybe you will do politics differently if you insist on being in politics. Kenney said when the news of the data leak became public, he immediately knew what that meant for him because the group involved has, quote, been making pretty creative threats against him for years. That group started basically as an anti-vax kind of convoy adjacent movement back in the 2021, and there's some pretty highly caffeinated people there, Kenney said. And so I'm taking prudent security measures. But I'm also concerned for the 3 million people whose privacy has been breached here, Kenney said. Think about the vulnerable women victims of domestic violence whose perpetrators can now more easily find out where they're living and so forth. And again, it's like he is saying the right thing here. But again, I can't get out of my head that this is coming out of the mouth of the same man who would not let, who campaigned against people who were dying from AIDS, having their life partner, being able to visit them in the hospital room. We're talking about thinking about the vulnerable. It just doesn't, again, Jason Kenney's got a long track record, man. With regard to his personal data being displayed, quote, it was essentially incitement, Kenney told Capellas. For that individual to show that information to that particular group was not coincidental. It wasn't arbitrary. It was a very deliberate message being said. That part, I agree with him 100%. Absolutely was incitement. Absolutely. Asked why he believes he's being targeted, Kenney said he receives threats from people in that ecosystem regularly. He added the group may be targeting him because he's, quote, an outspoken federalist. Quote, these are folks who are just angry with modernity, with elites writ large, he said. And for them, I'm like one of the local representatives of all of Canada and modernity and globalism. Wow. Oh, man. Asked whether he believes the issue of separation is being taken seriously enough across the country, Kenney said no. The former premier says he doesn't think many central Canadians understand Alberta's history and grievances, citing the, quote, historical roots of Western alienation in the National Energy Program and the impact of former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's environmental policies. Quote, I would encourage my fellow Canadians across the country to take a moment and try to understand that and demonstrate some empathy or some understanding of Albertans' frustration, Kenney said, adding, while the number of, quote, hardcore separatists may be small, the group of frustrated federalists is much larger. Quote, they know separatism doesn't work, he said. They're proud Canadians at one level, but they want to send a message and they think that maybe this is the way to do so. Kenney said, it's time to start making arguments against separation rather than hoping the issue will go away on its own. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, Kenney added, would, quote, be very well placed to do so, in part because he grew up in Alberta and now represents a rural Alberta constituency. Quote, to his credit, he ran in a by-election in an area of rural Alberta where there is a fair bit of separatist sentiment on a very clear federalist platform, and he won over 80% of the vote, Kenney said, adding it would be an opportunity for Poilievre to demonstrate that he's a qualified and patriotic Canadian political leader. You can see that Jason Kenney is killing Pierre Poilievre with kindness here and praise, damning him with the faintest of praise. I may or may not have designs to become the next leader of the federal conservatives, Pierre. But I don't want to clear that yet. And I'm still building my brand back up. You know, I wanted people to see me differently than I was before. Yeah, you know, I'm a staunch federalist, and you know, Pierre Poilievre would be very, very well placed to take up this mantle and to fight for the cause in Battle River Crowfoot specifically, and all of Alberta, where he is currently running and currently represents, and may be forced to run again somewhere in Alberta next time around if he wants to stay there, or if he plans to do it again in Ontario. Well, you know, might be good for Pierre to have some video of him stating that he's really all for Canada and telling the separatists to shove it. But you ever think Pierre will do that? It's Jason Kenney here seems to be asking Pierre to commit to commit an act that would lead to the end of his political career. Mr. Jason Kenney appears while trying to look magnanimous and patriotic and Captain Canada-ish, inviting Pierre Poilievre to politically hang himself, just casually. To his credit, he ran on a very clear Federalist platform. Yeah, he was in the writing as little as possible during that by-election, said as little as possible. So yeah, Um, when people are saying, nobody wants Pierre out. He's the leader for a long time. Nobody's even organizing. Jason Kenney's organizing. Jamil Javani's organizing. They're really organizing. And speaking of Pierre, it would seem that once again, he did not have a great weekend because they had that Canada Proud conference-ish type thing that was not particularly well attended. Counter-programming to that, there was the Cap Action conference that was where Mark Carney was, and Pete Buttigieg had come for that event. I'm going to have I have the impression that the Cap Action conference may have been much more well attended than the the Canada Strong and Free apparently network thing. Sorry, I thought it was a Canada Proud, but Canada Strong and Free. It was. Interestingly enough, and I don't know if I can find it here, but the National Post's Adam Zivo, I think it was in attendance at the event and had reported back on it. And it seems that Pierre was less than impressive in his address that he gave there. Is it Adam Zivo? His name is? Which is really interesting. This clip itself as well was not. It's not on his own Twitter feed as well, which is making it maybe a little harder for me to find here. But in it, he's reporting live from it, and that Pierre's address wasn't particularly interesting or rousing. It even may have been somewhat phoned in, even described as underwhelming. So it seems now that it could very well be that the butter knives that Althea Raj once mentioned, stating that the butter knives are out, may be being upgraded to different types of knives because Mr. Zivo is not particularly a moderate, and he kind of made a big name for himself on opposing anything having to do with harm reduction when it comes to drug use. Very, very, very much against it. So definitely not you're a light and fluffy, cuddly conservative. But the call from inside the House sounds like.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre might have sunk his political career this week, and here's why. I'm currently at the Canada Strong and Free Network Ottawa conference, which is among the most significant conservative gatherings in the country. While the energy at this event is usually electric, this year it's been noticeably muted. The auditorium is half the usual size, the sponsor booths are sparser, attendance is low, and people seem a little dejected. That's not the fault of the event organizers, who are absolutely lovely, but rather a reflection of the general listlessness of Canada's Conservative movement following Prime Minister Mark Carney's surprise election last spring. The Conservative Party has failed to define a new vision that can compete with Carney's centrist brand, which has allowed the Liberals to maintain a sizable lead in the polls. This could have been the perfect opportunity for Poilievre to reinvent himself and explain how the Conservatives can rise above the challenges of the past year. But he didn't do that. Instead, he gave a speech yesterday that was full of stale talking points and complaints about Carney and Trudeau. Carney, Trudeau, Trudeau, the same stuff we've been hearing for months, if not years. No substantive solutions, no serious attempts to address the challenges facing the party today. The speech may as well have been written 6 months ago. And on top of that, his delivery was half-hearted. 2 other attendees told me that he seemed checked out, an assessment that I personally agree with. Most of the conference attendees I've spoken to were disappointed. They wanted more meat with their potatoes. It's not that it was a bad speech per se, just a perfectly mediocre one given at a time when mediocrity is not enough. Will their disappointment eventually precipitate a change in leadership? We'll see. But I think this may be an inflection point. If you want to learn more about this story, though, you can read my column in the National Post along with other great analysis of this event. And follow my socials for more updates too. I'm Adam Zivo with the National Post reporting from Ottawa. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre might...
Wow. Shots fired. I will have people notice that when Adam Zivo said that people wanted more steak with their potatoes, I'm guessing Pierre Potato. I can't help myself. I'm sorry. But yeah, the event was smaller. People seemed dejected. The organizers were lovely, but the movement is listless. Conservatives can't compete. This could have been another opportunity for Pierre to reinvent himself. What, the 187,165th? Like, it could have worked. This wasn't an opportunity for him to reinvent himself. It would have been an opportunity for him to reinvent himself had he not tried to and failed or abandoned it all those times before. But yeah, I guess he could have tried another one again. And then again, his speech was full of stale talking points, the same stuff we've been hearing for months, if not years. I mean, isn't this what we have been saying? It's almost like Mr. Zivo has been listening to our show and suddenly decided or agreed that we were right. Pierre seemed checked out. Is this the end of Pierre? Talking about a speech that was mediocre. God, we've been saying that Pierre's been mediocre forever. Mediocrity is not enough. When has it ever been? But does this have anything to do with Andrew Scheer? About a week and a half ago, trying to claim that the National Post was a liberal rag, which provoked John Ivison to write an article, which we read to you, saying, you're being criticized, not persecuted, Andrew. In parenthesis, the so calm the fuck down was silent in that title. One big silent letter. So yeah, Adam Zivo from the National Post. I guess Andrew Scheer is going to really consider it a liberal rag now if the National Post is saying that the big conservative come look at me, be conservative conference was not particularly well attended. But then again, they had Ambassador Fuckface on the on the initial speakers list, so maybe he repelled. Hey Pierre, maybe it's not you. Maybe it was the fact that the ambassador was on the guest list. Maybe that's what it was. Oh my God. Yeah, geez. These people, they're always the victims. They are always the victims. But yeah, clearly didn't go well. So yeah, we have one conference where Pierre seemed to be checked out, doing the same old thing. His act is tired. His act is stale. And the other one, you got the Prime Minister and Pete Buttigieg there, and people seem to have been having a wonderfully good time. Yes. I believe that Andrew Scheer's specific words were regurgitating liberal talking points. I guess because the Post enjoys liberal bailouts, they're afraid of criticizing the hand that feeds them. Yes, because the National Post, the Chatham Asset Management owned 63-66% New Jersey based group that supports Trump, apparently now runs paper that is pro-liberal. We are supposed to believe. Because that paper, particularly under the management of this group, has had a illustrious track record of telling us about all the wonders of Justin Trudeau. And how he's a leader with vision and the foresight for the future. Every day in the National Post, we've been reading those regurgitated liberal talking points. Hey, Andrew Scheer, if the people at the National Post are starting to believe that Mark Carney is a better conservative option than your party, maybe that's a sign that your party is not particularly conservative anymore. Just a hint. You might want to look into that. Because it's a Conservative Party of Canada, I'll just tell you, it ain't much of a party. People aren't having fun. They can't seem to leave that party fast enough. Not particularly conservative. If you ask traditional ideological conservatives, there's not much conservative about your party. There's lots that's regressive, and there's lots that's authoritarian, and there's lots that's sort of libertarian, authoritarian even, but there's not much that's actually genuinely conservative. And there's starting to be some doubts about the Canada part too. Just saying. Don't seem to stand up Canada for much. Even most times that you're talking about Canada, you're trashing it. So, yeah, you might want to look into that. You probably strayed from your the party's original vision or mission, as stated. Maybe. Maybe it's not that the National Post has become a liberal rag. Maybe it's just that your party has become too much of a cartoon, a disaster, and a train wreck for even the National Post to take you seriously anymore. And that would take some doing. Perhaps. But yeah, things not going so well. So kids and cubs, I think this is where we're going to end for today. I keep on wanting to bring you some financial and economic information, but this Alberta List Leak thing just becomes keeps growing and growing. And it is really bad because we've had confirmed that on those cease and desist letters that went out from Elections Alberta, 2 of them, 23 of those cease and desist letters went to other organizations that may or may not have in turn distributed the list themselves. That would be not good for the highly scientific technical term. That would, it's sort of like a virus, an epidemic, right? It spreads, and then you get they track the first list of contacts who had it. But if some of those spread it out some more, then they got to find out who they spread it to. And hopefully who they spread it to didn't share it to more people who shared it to more people, and so on, and so on, and so on. For those of you who remember that commercial back in the day, he told 2 friends, and she told 2 friends, and they told 2 friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. Because, yeah, that's how, again, the point that Chris was making, Kid Chris, that you can delete the database, but that doesn't mean the data is gone. The horse is out of the barn and galloping. I just, man, this is not good. And just the lack of empathy and caring from these people. Just no concern whatsoever from anybody. Jeffrey Rath belched out a tweet on the 10th saying, "Notice that Danielle Sith hasn't publicly told Mark Carney to butt out of the Alberta independence debate. Foreigners like Carney have no business telling Albertans what to do." Foreigners. Foreigners, Carney, have no business telling us what to do. Wow. That is something. Wouldn't it be a kick in the teeth? Wouldn't it be a kick in the teeth if we found out somewhere along the way that Mr. Rath had dual citizenship? A bit like Andrew Scheer. Oh man. So yeah, like I said, we're at the saying phase here of this debacle. Absolutely, say anything phase. So you know, hold on to your hats, man. It's gonna be a rather bumpy ride. All right, kids and cubs, that's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us because we loved making this for you. Remember that sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. We really, really appreciate it when you do, especially when you share a little bit of yourselves, why it is that our content has resonated with you. That is advertising that we just cannot buy. So we thank you for that. If you would like to help us, kids and cubs, there are some ways you can do that, and that would make us very, very, very grateful. And one of the ways you can do that is by going to our YouTube page if you are not already there, and clicking on our buttons, our like, share, and subscribe buttons. When you do that, it helps us with the algorithm, and we really appreciate the help. And if you are watching on your phone and you're not watching live and it's within 7 days of the airing, could you please check to see if you can give some hype points to our show? And if you can, we would really appreciate it because it helps lower audience channels like ourselves be better known. We appreciate that. Thank you so much. And if you would like to help us in other ways, kids and cubs, this QR code will bring you to the Eager Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, where you can do your bit to keep your favorite beaver and bear nice and moist, because a moist beaver is always a very happy beaver. And one way you can ensure that your favorite beaver remain moist is through a contribution to the Beaver Lodge's Emergency Hydration Fund, which you can access with this QR code. You can make a one-time donation or a recurring donation if you would like to keep us in the well-stocked and hot chocolate. We love advanced purchases. But all the help that you can give, and any help you can give, is appreciated. There's no donation too small. And when you donate through our coffee page, we get about 95 to 97% of your donation. And now I'm going to make sure put a little beaver moistener in here because I can tell I'm getting a little scratchy. There we go. Now get some cubs. Other ways you can donate is if you're on our YouTube channel. Of course, we have stickers and super chats and memberships. We appreciate those. We get about 70% of your donation there. And if you're doing the Buy Canadian thing, truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com is our email address. And there you can just send us a direct bank transfer, and that will take care of it. And there we get 100% of your donation because it is an entirely Canadian transaction, and no US CE Tech Bros get a share through a processing fee or a cut or something like that. Kids and cubs, let's see, what else do we have here for you? Because democracy is something that you know that I'm missing something here. Oh yeah, I skipped the whole contact us. Kids and Cubs, if as well you cannot contribute financially, please don't worry. We want to hear from you. So you can contribute with words, like, for example, letting us know what you think about the show, good, bad, or ugly, making some suggestions. We love compliments and constructive critique. You can also suggest guests for our interview project. We love those. And if you have some questions about the show or about politics that you would like us to answer, please send them to us at truenortheagerbeaver at gmail.com. Also, Kids and Cubs, if you would like to support us in raising a little bit of money for our beneficiaries for our mental health walk, which will be taking place on June 20th. I am doing a fundraiser where I'm trying to get back into better health by losing some weight because I tipped the scales at 182 pounds almost a month ago today. So I'm looking for $1 or $2 per donation per pound I've lost. If you can, more if you can, that would be great. And all you need to do is send a little message to truenortheagerbeaver at gmail.com that you would like to pledge and how much there is. Now, I need to let you know, however, that if you pledge now, you are on the hook now for $11 because I tipped the scales at 171 this morning. Thank you, tennis. And thank you, people who are making me run a lot. I actually asked someone at one point, says, you know what, we know that you're better than me, but if I'm trying to lose some weight, so if you want to extend the points a lot, play with your food before you eat it. I'm good with that right now. Make me run. Make me run. So, yeah, I'm down to 171, Kids and Cubs. Woo! Hopefully, we'll break that 170 plateau soon. And all the money that we raise, all the weight that I lose between now and June 20th, the day of the walk, will be distributed to our beneficiaries, the Men of the North program in Saskatchewan, which is Indigenous led, and of course, the Lonely Man Project in Newfoundland and Labrador. So please, if you can, we would be very grateful for your support with that initiative. Let's see, what else do we have going on here, Kids and Cubs? If you want to reach us via our socials at True Eager at the Blue Sky Beaver Lodge and on the Jitter. True North Eager Beaver on Facebook, our original home. Of course, we have the DamFam Discord started by you if you want to keep the conversation going there. We have the DamFam Instagram run by Kit Uncover. That's a good place to go. We have our Beaver Bites Substack. We have our coffee page, of course. And of course, if you are listening on YouTube, right down here in the comments section, you can leave a little something. We read absolutely everything you send us, even though we're not able to answer everyone. And we thank you for taking the time to let us know your thoughts about the show. We really appreciate it. And for those who are wondering, my next appearance on the O Show might be coming this Friday. So stay tuned for that, Kids and Cubs. Ooh, I'm so excited. I love time with Lady Laura. Because democracy is something that you do, Kids and Cubs, we have two petitions for you. We have House of Petitions, ourcommons.ca E7395, which calls upon the House of Commons to stop funding Stornoway private residence for the leader of the opposition. When we left for the weekend, I think we were at 10,245 signatures. We are now at 10,529. So the weekend was a little late. So let's get a little bit more active activity on this one. Here is the link to it. And the other petition we are promoting at the moment, Kids and Cubs, it's ourcommons.ca petition E7340, which calls upon the House of Commons to invoke its authority under Section 53 of the Supreme Court Act to refer the constitutionality of Alberta's Justice Statutes Amendment Act 2025 to the Supreme Court of Canada, and to direct the Foreign Influence Transparency Commissioner to immediately investigate the meetings between the Alberta Prosperity Project and the Trump administration. Seems like that would be a good thing to do if you actually love Canada and you actually want to stand up for Canada. So this link that I'm just posted will bring you there. And when we left for the weekend, this petition had 21,372 signatures. And we are now at 22,127. So this one is growing quickly. So let's keep that going. The signatures are going to be collected until June 20th. Please circulate them. Let everybody know. We really appreciate that. May 11th, if you are in New Brunswick, today is Municipal Elections Day. So please get out and vote, 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 vote. And make sure that you are voting for your school trustees, and make sure you research them so that you don't have some school trustees that would like to oppress our children, or people that would like to ban books. Remember, kits and cubs, in the history of the world, the people who have always wanted to ban or burn the books have never been the good guys. So don't let them get anywhere near your children's education. Go out and vote. And if you're in British Columbia, we're now May 11th, so it means like somewhere around the 9th, you would have received your packages if you are eligible to vote in the leadership race for the BC Conservatives. And so this is the time now to fill out your ballots and to make sure that you vote. The results will be revealed on the 30th. And of course, Kits and Cubs, this is also the last day to fill in the census. I believe they are due tomorrow. Now, if you're not able to fill them in tomorrow, don't worry. It's not like it's a $500 fine immediately. First, you'll get some letters and some phone calls and stuff like that. So for any reason, for example, like my friend who's staying here, he happens to be here taking care of his mom and is not back home to fill it out. If that's the case, you won't get penalties right away. So you have a little bit of margin, but do try to get it in as fast as possible. Remember, our response rate to nationally is over 98%, and there's no point in not filling it out. All you're doing is hurting yourself and your community by not letting people who make decisions about where we place roads and schools and hospitals and all that kind of stuff know that you're there. It's like, this is one time you don't want to be invisible. You want people to know where you are. You want to be counted so that you get the services and benefits and other things like that that you're entitled to. So please fill out the census. Very, very important. All right, Kits and Cubs. I think that's all I've got for you. So I guess I need a couple of words of wisdom. And my words of wisdom would be, again, breathe. Don't react, especially to things that are like seem to be destined, formed, shaped in order to bypass your logical brain and go directly to your emotions. There's probably a motive for that happening, and you want to look what's behind that. And remember, as things are going crazy and as you see people adopting behaviors or taking positions that you may not be familiar with coming out of their mouths, always ask yourself the two questions. What is the motive for the behavior, and who benefits from the behavior? That will help you with your critical reasoning and your critical thinking. That will help your BS detector a lot, because there's a lot of people spreading some BS right now. Hopefully tomorrow there won't be tons of news today, and I will be able to get to the economic stuff because there's a lot of news. I mean, we have employment stuff, and we have some investments and other types of things, deals. There's that big deal, I think, with Air Asia, I think, for those planes. There's another deal or something seemed to be going down for different types of planes, not F-35s, but different types of planes that might also be coming from Saab that could be useful to us. There is something having to do with a Honda plant as well, and there's some details there. There's a little bit of nuance there from just the headline. So we want to get into that, and it looks very, very it looks like Canada is on track to be signing 3 comprehensive free trade agreement deals before the end of the year. Pierre keeps on saying that there are none, but it looks like the one with the ASEAN bloc of nations, which would be very important, the one with India, and the one with, it is escaping me the third one off the top of my head, but there are 3 that Mercosur, I believe the Mercosur bloc of nations could be finalized before the end of the year, which would again put another nail in the Poilievre political coffin, another argument that he will not be able to use credibly. So lots of stuff going on, and hopefully we'll have a chance to get into it, and we won't have something bump that off the news platform tomorrow. All right, Kits and Cubs, that is all I have got. So it's time for me to ask you for a little audience participation. And please, DamFam, may I have the wonderful gift of all of you together in unison saying, Mr. Beaver, please cue the cock on 1, on 2, and on 3. Here we go. Oh, yes, that is the good stuff right there, kids and cubs. Hey, I live to serve, and therefore I must oblige. Here's a little cock-a-doodle-doo just for you. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters. CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. Am I back yet? There we go. All right, DamFam. A little bit of news of Canadians who make us proud. How about those Montreal Canadiens? Oh boy, those last after a start where they lost their first match to the Buffalo Sabres, 4-2. It has been a scoring fest for the Montreal Canadiens with 2 consecutive victories, a 5-1, and then a 6-2 yesterday for a 2-1 series lead. Go Habs, go! I'm down with it. Also, you may have heard on Saturday afternoon some very, very, very loud cheer wherever you are in the country. If you did, that was me because the Ottawa Charge, yes, are heading for their second consecutive Walter Cup final after taking care of the Boston Fleet 4-3 yesterday in a match that went to double overtime. And Michaela Cava, in her first goal ever scored while wearing an Ottawa Charge jersey, got the game winner. So it will be either the Ottawa Charge versus the Montreal Victoire or the Minnesota Frost, 2-time defending and Walter Cup winner, only team to have won the Walter Cup so far, actually, who are playing their last match in their best of 5 series tonight at 7 p.m. in Minnesota. So go Montreal, go! It would be nice to have an all-Canadian PWHL final. That would make me a very, very, very happy beaver. And of course, also some congratulations going out to Sophia Jensen, who is a canoe sprint athlete who took a silver medal in the opening weekend of the ICF Canoe Sprint World Cup in Szeged, Hungary. She raced to a time of 1:59.75 in the C1 500-meter race, finishing just 3/4 of a second off the world record time. She was the world champion silver medal winner in the C1 500 in 2022. And she almost grabbed a second medal on Sunday when she finished just 0.13 seconds behind a competitor from Ukraine for a medal in the 200-meter discipline. So there you go. Kids and cubs, a little bit to celebrate there. That's all I got for you. So with that, I'm out. Have a terrific day, and we will see you again tomorrow. Amour, bisous. Bye.